I've heard it so many times, but Zach, what about carbs? What about sugar? Should I stay away from them? I've heard they're like drugs. What should I do? I don't know what to do. If you are like this, or if you know people around you that are like this video is for you. I'm going to educate you guys on exactly what is happening in the body when you take in carbohydrates, when you take in sugar, and show you guys that correlation does not always equal causation. But before we begin, I want to challenge you guys to a framework. Watch this video with the mindset that you're going to teach 3 to 5 of your friends these concepts, because what I've learned is you learn through application. And so by not only learning yourself, but by teaching it, it actually cements this into the brain, and it's going to further your understanding. So I want to challenge you guys to do that and shoot me a DM and let me know how it goes. Also, please give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe. You have so much more cool content coming. I appreciate you guys so much for watching. It means the world. Let's get into the video. So we've all heard that carbs are bad. We've all heard that sugar is bad. I'm going to show you exactly what's happening here. It's a prime example of when correlation does not equal causation. I'm super thankful of my economics background because I got to read a ton of economic studies, and I realized that 99% of the statements that are made not only in the economic world, but the nutritional world, are a prime example of correlation does not equal causation. Let me explain. In Detroit, ice cream sales during the summer increase. In Detroit, murders during the summer increase. So if you wanted to contort the data, your thesis was increased ice cream sales cause more murders. What you can do is look at that data and say, oh my gosh, ice cream sales increased during the summer. So did murders. So increased ice cream sales caused increased murders. Boom. That's not how it works. That's crazy, right? That sounds insane. That's what most people do with nutritional research. And that's what they've done with the sugar research. It's case sensitive. So what I want to do right now is help you guys understand what is actually happening in the body, the why behind why people call sugar and carbohydrates bad. So carbohydrates, in the absence of our other 2 macronutrients, our protein and our fats, are not very satiating, aka they do not keep you full. So that is like our breads, our pastas, our rice, our fruit juices, etc. All these foods that are mostly carb and sugar sources. So the argument that carbohydrates are bad is in the absence of proteins and fats. And the negative responses of carbohydrates happen in the absence of proteins and fats. But we normally all eat meals with a source of protein and a source of fat. And what comes into play is when you eat carbohydrates all by themselves, it tends to lead to you overeating. So let's use an example. So one thing I've noticed is usually somebody who eats a lot of carbohydrates is not eating a lot of protein. And we know that protein is the most satiating macronutrient of our 3, of the protein, carbs, and fats. Protein is the one that keeps us the most full. So look what's happening here. If you eat a very high carbohydrate diet, the chances of you overeating are that much higher. Thus you eating more calories than you need, thus you gaining more weight, thus you becoming obese. And thus we get all this research talking about sugar and carbohydrates are bad. It's not that black or white, it's case sensitive. So if you eat carbohydrates with a balanced meal of proteins and fats, the negative effects of you overeating or the insulin response that you have is negated. The spike in insulin just doesn't happen when it's paired with proteins and fats. It's very minimal. And to help you guys understand what is actually happening, insulin is a transmitter. And what it's telling your body is to store. And what it gets its bad name for is a lot of times when you're becoming obese, your insulin tends to tell your body to store everything as body fat. And thus, as you can see, you become obese and your health declines over and over and becomes this vicious cycle. That's why working out and losing weight actually helps with this, because it helps insulin transmit to your cells that you need to store more of this and use more of this as energy and in your actual muscle cells. So I want to give you guys a visual example of this that will help cement this in your brain. So I want you to think of carbohydrates as a race car driver. And so if you just eat a meal that is only carbohydrates, it's literally like the race car driver is in his best race car and he's at the racetrack and there's nobody there. He's just driving as fast as he can. And that's literally what's happening with your digestion. So if you eat a big bowl of white rice or you have candy or anything like that, you're literally letting that race car driver drive as fast as you can. So that's literally your digesting that so much faster. And you eat that meal, you consume those calories, and before you know it, you're even more hungry than you were before. But That's case sensitive. Now imagine that same race car driver, that's our carbohydrates, but he's paired with a protein and a fat. Those are his kids and his wife, and they're in a minivan. They're driving around town. He's driving a little bit over the speed limit, probably the speed limit. He's being safe. And that's what's happening in the body when you pair your carbs with the protein and the fat. It's all normalized. There's no this huge spike. The proteins and the fats slow the digestion of the carbohydrates. You have this slow trickle of energy. So this war on carbs, that carbs are bad and sugar is bad, it's case sensitive. So I want to give you guys another example that happened the other day with one of my clients. I don't take on many clients, but I do take on some special ones. And I have one named Phil. So Phil came to me a couple months ago and he was 440 pounds. He's lost 40 pounds. And one of his biggest struggles were trigger foods. He told me that he would eat these trigger foods and then he couldn't stop eating. He couldn't stop eating. He couldn't control it. And so his thing was, I just need to stay away from these trigger foods. And for me, I did not think this was the best thing to do. I still don't think this is the best thing to do. I wanted him to do the complete opposite. But let's look at trigger foods. Like when we cut them out, what is actually happening? We're telling the trigger foods that they won, that they are in control. We are a victim. And that when we eat them, we're not going to be able to stop. The trigger foods have won. It's kind of like a marriage when your spouse has trigger-like characteristics, things that you don't like. And so you ignore them for the longest time. You don't say anything. And when you're happy, everything is good, they're easy to ignore. But then over time, they just wear on you. And then you snap. Then your marriage suffers. And then who knows, you might get a divorce. But what if we tackled them face on? What if you had a sit down with your spouse and you said, honey, I love you so much. I've chosen to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to make this work. But when you do X, it really does bother me. It hurts my feelings. And it would mean the world to me if you were to try and not do it as much. Like I said, I love you so much and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you. And if there's anything I can do to be better, let me know, because we're in this together. I want to make this work. And like, those are two different conversations. One is masking it, putting hands over your saying, oh, I don't recognize you. I can't see you. I can't see you, until it's right in front of your face and you flip out. That's kind of like with trigger foods. What's going to happen if you go out and there's a pizza right there and it's right in front of your face? But what if you looked at this food and you understood that I love food. Food is meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to put a smile on my face, and have empathy for yourself that this is hard. This is a struggle. This is going to be a work in progress, but you can get there. And just like that example of the marriage and going and facing it head on and having empathy for each person's situation, you're going to work on this and you're going to become better. And then you're going to realize you're in control. So what I did with Phil is I needed him to realize that he was in control. And so I told Phil the next day to go about his day and to shoot me a text if he thought he was about to have any type of trigger episode. And so about 2 p.m. the next day, my phone lit up. And it was Phil saying, Zach, I think peanut M&Ms are a trigger food for me. So I hopped on a call with him right away and asked him about his day up till that point. He had been in stressful meetings all day. He had been working on some projects. And for Phil, I personally don't have him eat breakfast because he's so busy and he doesn't want to worry about food in the morning. It tends to slow him down. And he likes to eat bigger meals as the day goes on. And that works perfectly with his lifestyle, and he hits his macros, and that's perfectly awesome. And so he usually prefers to skip breakfast and wait until later on in the day to have his first meal. But if he wants to have breakfast, he can. But that is his choice. So in my mind, as he's telling me this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect storm. He's really stressed out. He probably hasn't eaten anything. And his first piece of food today was peanut M&Ms, the perfect ratio of carbs and fats and sugar that causes a dopamine release in the brain that is similar to like taking Molly or cocaine. Yes, that is where the comparison comes in. He's completely fasted, no food in him. These peanut M&Ms are digested so quickly and creates this crazy dopamine release. So I explained to him the exact mechanisms that were happening and that it was a perfect storm and that I didn't think it was a trigger food and that later on that day, I was going to have him have peanut M&Ms again. You might be thinking, Zach, are you crazy? But this time I had him pair it with a meal that has protein, carbs, and fats, a balanced meal. And then I was going to have him have the peanut M&Ms afterward. I was going to have him have the whole bag, take the whole bag and put it right there. And I told him to eat as many peanut M&Ms as he wanted, to literally finish the whole bag if he wanted, but not to finish the bag, just to finish the bag, but to eat these peanut M&Ms until his craving was gone, until he was like, I'm good. I'm satisfied. I have no regrets. And something magical happened. He only ate 4 peanut M&Ms. And in that moment, he had an aha moment. He realized that he was in control. He faced it head on. And then he realized how many perfect storms were happening in his whole life, where these triggers would happen that he thought were triggers, but in reality, they were just set up. He was set up to fail because it was the perfect storm happening. And that's what I want for you guys. So if you want to do this for yourself, do exactly what Phil did. Take a food that you think is a trigger food, have a balanced meal before, full of protein, a veg, some type of carbohydrate source, some type of fats, a healthy meal, and then I want you to put that trigger food right in front of you. And I want you to eat until you're satisfied. Not to finish whatever it is, but to eat until you're satisfied, no regrets. Because true freedom happens when you can have a whole cake in front of you and you can have one slice. You can have 12 cupcakes in front of you and you can have one. You have 12 donuts in front of you and you can have one. That is power. That is truly being nutritionally free. And you can navigate all kinds of social situations that way. And that's what I want. And I know I've created a bunch of cool recipes that you're able to eat 12 donuts for the macro price of one donut, but that's besides the point. If you're out and about and these things happen, I want you to be in control and not be victim to any trigger food. Have optimism that you will succeed. Don't go into it thinking that you're gonna fail. This is a beautiful journey. Learn from every experience, embrace it, and you'll be so happy you went through all of it. And most importantly, do it all with a smile on your face. And so that's it, my friends. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And remember, I want you to find 3 to 5 people that have a bad relationship with sugar or carbs and try and teach them this. See how it goes. You're going to learn so much. You're going to hear a bunch of objections and see if you can navigate through them. Send me a DM and let me know what your biggest objections were and see if I can help you. And also, please give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe. We have so much more cool content coming. Let me know in the comments below, what was your key takeaway from this? And as always, thank you so much for watching. God bless, and I'll see you guys in the next video.